Well, welcome one and all. We are here with the round table for a DREDD special. This is a DREDD mega review. No, this is not new to me or my guest today, Andre, who's a regular here on Mondays. In fact, the regular on Monday. It is me and Andre every single Monday. This movie's nothing new, but basically we got chatting about this one live stream. It was a few weeks ago, and I just thought, God damn, this would make a really good stream. So this is a DREDD mega review. If you haven't watched it, we will be discussing spoilers. If you haven't watched it, where have you been? It was released 9 years ago, 2012. Go watch it. You will not be disappointed. So there's your non-spoiler review. But thank you for joining me today. Andre, how are you doing, good sir?
I am doing great, thank you. Just came off my own stream right now. I hope to see some who were there in the chat excited to talk about some DREDD. And I have to say, of all comic book movies ever made, if I had to single out one as, in my opinion, absolutely the best one, this is it.
Well, to me, it is the. I think so. For me, if I'm looking at a comic book movie, as a movie and as a comic book adaptation, this is pretty much what I could say and consider to be as close to perfect as it could get. Pretty bold claim. I don't know whether you share that at all.
No, I agree completely. Again, that's what I said. Of all comic book movies out there, if I had to pick the best one, this is it. So I am complete agreement with you. This movie is so tremendously underrated. It is one of the most underrated movies at the time of release, which we'll get into. And to this day, it is still the best comic book movie out there. Although I will agree with You Can Call Me Joker that Road to Perdition is some pretty heavy competition right there.
Yeah.
Another tremendously underrated comic book movie, just like A History of Violence. But still, DREDD is on a class of its own, because those two, they were adaptations of standalone stories, whereas DREDD is an adaptation of a long-running series. And they are the ones, and they are the ones where movie adaptations have a tendency to fail pretty badly, because there you have to pick and choose what to adapt, what to emphasize, what to keep in, what to keep out. And that's where the poor decisions have been made. So History of Violence and Road to Perdition had it easy.
Yeah. So I think first things first, what is your history with DREDD as a property before we get into the movie? Because I think it's important to understand that before we dive into the mega review. So what's your history of DREDD? And as Siege says, 2001 AD baby, or should we say 2000 AD as the comic? Yeah. So what's your history?
I have never in my life held a copy of 2000 AD in my hands.
Okay. That is sinful right there.
No, actually,
that's unbelievable.
No, but I still know my Judge Dredd. Now, actually, Judge Dredd was reprinted in Norway in the late 80s and early 90s in another anthology magazine, which you can say is like it's not quite like 2000 AD. It's more. It was called. It was in two actually. It was Magnum and Exney Special, and the two of them were like major anthology magazines, and they had some great stuff. They had some things from heavy metal. They had a couple of things from 2000 AD, most notably Judge Dredd. They had some Conan. They had some Alien. They had some Predator. I think the Dark Horse comics. Nice. That's how I know those.
So a compilation then, sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Compilation with some badass painted art. So really badass. Like you would have loved the magazines. And so basically, they're in one comic. You would get Watchmen. You would get Alien. You would get Predator. You would get Judge Dredd. Like the best of the best is where you would get there. Like these were titles that wouldn't get their own standalone magazines, but they would all be in this this thing right here. And that magazine, Magnum and Exni Special, between those two is like where my love of comics were mostly fostered, and that's where I discovered DREDD. So I wasn't like a huge fan, but I was very well aware of DREDD. I read some of the stories there. So when the 1995 movie came around, I was familiar with DREDD from the comics, thanks to that. So, like, most people in Norway have no idea what Judge Dredd is, but thanks to those comics, me and a few others did. So I was eagerly anticipating that movie the moment that I first heard it announced, which was like in 1993. It was like announced, and I wondered what the hell happened to that until it suddenly showed up in 1995. I wasn't a big fan of Stallone in it. Did enjoy the visuals, overall enjoyed the movie, but I knew that in terms of the comic, liberties had been taken. And then my interest in Judge Dredd was pretty dormant until I moved to the UK to do my master's, because for those that don't know, I actually lived in the UK for 1 year. I lived in Bath Spa. And when I was there and I needed some break from studies, I went to like the local retailer in Bath. I've forgotten their name right now. I would shout them out if I did. But anyway, there I picked up some Conan comics, and this sparked my interest in Conan the Barbarian. Plus, I picked up the Judge Dredd case files, which had just started coming out at the time. I was like, okay, cool, I'll read this on the side then. And then it was in reading those case files that I became like a hardcore fan. So I'm not caught up with the newer stuff of Dredd. I'm caught up to like case files era. And I love those stories. So that would make me like an old school fan.
Yeah, well they're really good anyway, because they are for people that aren't really familiar with Dredd, and it's basically just reading one through, they're just the case files. You read them in numerical order. They're very, very good. So that's what we're going to be talking about today is obviously Dredd. We're going to be covering that as a massive review in and itself. We will touch on the series a little bit, because I have a lot of knowledge on the series, which just really important just to clarify this. And it's a common misconception, not for Netflix. Pandemic isn't holding it up, nothing like this. It was never actually a follow-up to Dredd either.
We'll get really into that, I'm sure.
Yeah. We will get into that, but it's really important not to sort of crowd the chat with misinformation, which may just be spread by people that don't actually know it. Not saying that Thundercats is intentionally doing it. Is a common misconception that the series was a follow-up to Dredd. It's not, and I have interviews with a few people confirming that, namely the owner of the property. So my history of Dredd specifically, I'm a Brit. I used to love 2000 AD. I used to pick it up on a weekly basis. Used to get it. I used to have to order it specifically in to my local newsagents. In fact,
that surprises me. I would have thought that those things would be everywhere. Or was that Beano?
No, Beano and the Dandy was pretty much everywhere. 2000 AD, like 2000 AD is kind of everywhere, but also kind of wasn't. It's dependent where you lived. Certain like at a certain point in my life when I was getting into Dredd, like in my teen years, I lived in like the arse end of nowhere, so it's very difficult for them to get orders of like a lot of things unless they wouldn't just get a variety in unless you actually ordered it. So I ordered that in on a weekly basis, and I absolutely loved it. Killed it. It was great. And then there was the monthly magazine as well, which I don't know if you probably never even heard of that, but there was the monthly magazine, which was epic, super, super cool, which was just a monthly, well, what it sounds like, magazine, really. It's a monthly magazine by 2000. I'm not even sure if they still do that anymore, to be honest. And then that's where I got into 2000 AD, Slain, Dredd, Strontium, Dog. We've got the other namesake here, Durham Red, an epic character who was literally stolen and reformed into Blood Rain. Ridiculous. But Durham Red's epic. Yeah, killed it. Like, I loved that stuff. That was my jam. I never picked up Marvel and I never picked up DC. It was 2000 AD that's what I read. That's my history of that. Thoroughly. I was a 2000 AD nut. Which hopefully, people do realize here on my channel, because I have a whole 2000 AD playlist of it all as well. And then, of course, the Stallone movie, and then we get 2012's Dredd, which me, as a big fan of Judge Dredd, didn't even know it was coming out at the time until I saw it at my local theatre. I was like, what?
That's unbelievable.
What? There's a new Dredd film? I was like, what is going on? I was very unimpressed with the marketing, which we will get on into after we review the film directly, I think. So
also how the experience was watching it, because that shows how interested I was in it when we get to that. But moving on. So you were then a hardcore fan of the 2000 AD source material.
Yes.
So from there, the 1995 movie. Let's begin with that.
Oh yeah,
unless you want to go somewhere else.
All right then. No. Let's do it. Let's talk, because we've spoken about this before. So I do think it's important to talk about it as well.
It is vital because it's part of the movie's failure and the marketing and everything. So you can't talk about just Dredd without addressing the 1995 movie, because without that movie, it wouldn't have failed like it did.
Yeah. Well, so I don't hate the 1995 movie. It's a guilty pleasure for me. It has a lot going for it, but it's of its time. It's a 90s movie. It is a Stallone movie. It's more him than it is Dredd, which is pretty apparent if anyone's read the material and then and then watched the movie. You'll see what I mean. But they had the absolute best, and it will never be beaten, the best cinematic live action version of Mean Machine Angel and one of the ABC Warriors as well.
Hammerstein, I believe.
Hammerstein, which was sort of Hammerstein, but sort of not. But it was you knew what it was. If you'd read the ABC Warriors, you knew what it was. And it was just the best. You're never going to beat them in live action ever again. They killed it. They were amazing. And then some of the other things that they did, which was so good, like the block war. Having a block war, that was standard in 2000 AD. They even had it going through the time when bloody Tom Cruise was divorced. I think it was when he was divorcing one of his wives or something like that. They had a block war between Cruise block and whoever else it was block. They used the block wars, or 2000 AD used to anyway, for good satirical commentary on real world events. It was fantastic. So bloody good. So they got so much right, but ultimately it was a Stallone film, and I think most people are aware of it being a Stallone film. But I don't hate it. It is absolutely a guilty pleasure for me. There is a lot good about it. The set pieces are great. The cursed earth, just the exile of the judges into. You can't hate that scene. You can't hate it. It's so good. Anyway, what do you think?
No, I agree. There is a lot good in that movie. The designs, apart from the judge suit itself, because I remember that growing up.
Not good.
I thought that the suit was fantastic until we got to the 2012 movie and the making, and I followed the production of that very closely.
Yeah.
That's when I took a look at the costume again, and I said, oh my god, I grew up thinking that this was amazing and couldn't be bettered. Everything else can't be bettered, but those suits, they can be bettered for real, which they were. But anyway, like the ABC Warrior and Mean Machine can't be bettered. Ain't no way.
So good.
Perfection. There's two downfalls of that movie. The first one is that the movie was made in the 90s and they hadn't cracked formula, because the mindset at the time was that a movie is the definitive iteration of the comic. All that comic.
They do everything.
So yeah, so we're gonna pick this, we're gonna pick that, we're gonna pick that, we're gonna pick that, and we're gonna blend it all together. And that way, what we're gonna do is that, like, you wouldn't do that today, because today what you would do, you would take material for 6 great movies and you would mix them into one movie, and you would ruin all potential 6 movies and all storylines in one go. That's what they did. That's what they did then, but they didn't know any better, because more MCU wasn't invented yet. Like, had it been today, they would have taken each one of those storylines and given each one movie to breathe. But here, it was like all mixed together. And then, of course, is the casting of Stallone. This was always going to be the movie's downfall, because there were 2 men that were in contention for it. It was Arnold Schwarzenegger, or it was Sylvester Stallone. This was a demand from Synergy, the production company. It had to be one or the other, because they were looking to make an action blockbuster. So it was always going to be a vehicle for one of the 2. And it would be the same basic story, but then they would curtail that story to whoever it was. So if it had been Schwarzenegger, then it would have been the same basic. It would have been the same basic story, but then it would have been a more typical Schwarzenegger-like story, which it would have been awful, but I think it might have fit better. And I'm not so sure.
Do you think it would have fit better? I don't think it would have. The accent would have been bad.
Ignore that. I'm talking about the movie itself. I think that the structure of the movie itself probably would have been better, although Schwarzenegger would have been worse himself. But I'm just talking about the style of the movie, because I'll get into that. Because the moment that it ended up being Stallone, then they tailored the whole movie around for Stallone, and what that meant was that everything had to fit him. So it had to be a Stallone type movie. Now, a Stallone type movie is that he is fundamentally a victim. He's a victim of circumstance. That is what you have in all of his movies. Stallone's character is fundamentally a victim. That is the basics of his character. No, exactly. He's a victim. And so the whole movie was framed around that. Judge Dredd in this movie, he's a victim. He's something that he's a clone without knowing it. He's been brainwashed his whole life. He's been made this machine, but really we're supposed to feel sorry and empathize with him, and he has to go through this arc learning what the victim he is and to come to terms and accept it. That is his arc, and that wouldn't have been there if it had been a Schwarzenegger movie. If it had been a Schwarzenegger movie, he would have been fully aware that he was a judge, what that entailed, all of that. He would have been wronged, and he would have gone on a quest for revenge, and he would have fixed everything. But the character would probably have been closer to Judge Dredd of the comics, not by design, but by accident, because that is closer to the Schwarzenegger type of character. So that's why I think that. But I think
I disagree. You say that, but I do disagree, because Dredd over a period of time he does go through quite complex character arcs through the comics, like questioning the law, questioning his actions with his brother Rico, and other clones as well, because there's more clones. There's quite a few other Dredds out there looking after his sort of niece, but clone daughter thing. Vienna, I believe her name is, if I remember rightly. Long time since I read some of these things. So sometimes he is a victim of circumstance in some regards. He's not a typical action hero, which Arnold Schwarzenegger always is. So I disagree a little bit, but I respect your opinion.
Yeah, no, and that's the cool thing here. But that's my point. I think that if it had been Schwarzenegger, it would have looked the same. I think the story probably would have been closer to the Judge Dredd comics, but Schwarzenegger would have been worse than Stallone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. he wouldn't be a good Dredd. He
No,
wouldn't have
he
been a
would be
good
awful.
Dredd. Yeah,
He'd be as awful as that as Mr. Freeze. So yeah, we judged
yeah, yeah.
both of that. He would have been completely ridiculous, is it? But I think that the movie would have story-wise been better. But anyway, that alternative reality that didn't happen. We got Stallone, and the moment that happened, the movie was transformed into a Stallone vehicle. So you have Sylvester Stallone starring in the lead role as Sylvester Stallone in a Stallone vehicle, featuring Stallone and a Stallone storyline that happens to be built up around the Dredd worlds. That's kind of what we got.
Yeah.
And for that, it looked pretty amazing though. And there are some good moments in it. Like you said about the block war. That's
fantastic.
Fantastic, amazing. And also some of the humor there, it's fantastic. You have like this little droid, and that was very Dredd of the comics. Like, eat recycled food. It's good for the environment and okay for you. That was fantastic.
Well, Max von Sydow was good as well. He was fantastic as Chief Judge.
He was brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. The cast were good all around. Like, even Roy Scheider, the point of view character, however annoying, he was far less annoying there. And some of his humor worked. I remember when I saw the movie, I thought that like some of the interaction between them, of course, now is cringeworthy. But at the time, in the 90s, when I saw it first time,
you got to judge it from 90s sensibilities when you actually watch it. Like I said, if I watch it back now, I'm like, well, it's a guilty pleasure. When I watched it at the time, I was like, this is sick. This is mate. Like this is rad.
I love it.
Watching it back now, you're like, come on now.
It doesn't story-wise, it doesn't hold up, and Roy Scheider is among the worst of those things. But at the time, I loved it. I loved the movie when it came out. I will make no excuses for it. Did I have issues with it? Would I have liked to see someone other than Stallone take on the role? Because I did feel that he was a weak point. Yeah. But still, overall, it's a guilty pleasure today, and it was really cool at the time.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. And so, what did you think of Sly Stallone specifically?
I never bought him as Dredd. Like, I had only read the comics, and I had read them in Norwegian, because it was translated to Norwegian, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But so like the moment that he appears, he steps off his motorcycle. That whole thing was really cool. And then the moment he opened his mouth and he said, "I am the law," and I was like, "You're saying it wrong."
Yeah,
that's.
Yeah.
Keep in mind.
There's some weird nuance going on there, Stallone. What you doing, mate?
Keep in mind, I had only read the Norwegian translation of the line, and I still heard, "You're saying it wrong."
Yeah, I get that. A lot of people, Orange Hat Reviews is saying Amanda Sante was good as Rico. I would agree. He was a good Rico Dredd. He was a very good Rico Dredd. And he says that he did a good insane villain, one with intelligence, but also given the right sense of insanity and rage. And also, he had good use of 90s quips, like, one-liners before he kills someone, like, well, I guess I'm a judge. And then, it was good. That was not a bad part of the Sly movie, I don't think. I wouldn't say they look the same, obviously, but...
Obviously. You know what I was thinking at the time? And I swear to you, I was thinking this, because this goes to Stallone, because having read the Norwegian translated version of the comics, I knew the storyline of Dredd and Rico. I knew that they were clones in an ideal world. It should have been like the same actor to play both Dredd, Rico, and Fargo, because they're literally the same person. So ideal should have been the same. So I was like thinking that, okay, I get that Fargo is supposed to be older, and Max von Sydow is fantastic in everything, but Armand Asante, who plays Rico, I had seen him in Conquest of Paradise, like 1492, the Conquest of Paradise, just a couple of weeks before I saw this movie, so I remembered him from there.
Mm.
So I knew what a great dramatic actor he was. So I was like thinking to myself, it would have been so good if he was both Rico and Dredd.
Yeah. Played, yeah. It wouldn't have worked with 90s technology, I don't think.
Probably not, but I would have...
playing double duty. But yeah, I agree with that. He
because
he
to
would have
me
done pretty
that
well
was
there.
like the disappointing thing. Is like, but why they're supposed to be clones? They're supposed to look exactly the same.
Yeah.
So to me, that was like a weakness even there. And like he really overacts, but even at the time, I would have liked to see him as Dredd.
Yeah, but you know what they should have done, which is just a massive letdown, right? What they should have done, because they obviously know that they don't look the same. They should have had Rico Dredd appear as he does in the comic when he's been sent to the Titan. I think it's Titan prison.
It's Titan,
and he's got all the metal implants for the breathing. They just have him come back with that. Like he's not going to look the same, then, is it? It's fine.
Yeah, but they don't have to because
they
changed it because in the comics it's like Titan, which is a moon of Saturn, but in the movie they changed it to Aspen.
I know. Why?
So that removed that.
Why? Like such a pointless change.
I would imagine. This is just my guess, but I would imagine that they decided that was probably one too big an ask, and also maybe half the audience isn't even aware of Titan if that's a different planet.
But you just say, "Oh, from Titan, the moon where we keep our prisoners." Like it's not hard. It's thrown away in a little bit of dialogue. But
I agree, and you would have done it today. But anyway, I don't know exactly what went into it. But again, it's kind of like cool because I see where they were going with Aspen, because at the time, Aspen was like this vacation paradise in the States, right? You saw like a contemporary movie, Dumb and Dumber, where they go for like this winter wonderland thing. It's Aspen. So in the American public conscious at the time, Aspen was like a winter wonderland paradise. And there, in this movie, Aspen is now a penal colony that's in a desert hellhole, just to illustrate how badly things have gone. So I see why they did that, and I won't really fault them for that. And in so doing, you no longer need the surgery for breathing in the Titan atmosphere.
But that would have resolved the issue with them not looking the same. Is I guess my point. But I thoroughly enjoyed that film. I think Mean Machine Angel was one of the best parts. Well, not the get ahead of myself. Let's talk about the ABC Warrior, because that is
so good.
Just when it stands up, you're just like, what?
To this day,
it's moving.
It's
moving. I was just like, what the hell is this? So good.
To this day, I maintain that there is no better robot in any movie, no Star Wars, no nothing, has a better, more terrifying robot than the walking tank that is the ABC Warrior.
I'll agree with that. It is a beast.
Where basically he says like tear off his arms and then his legs and then his head last. I was like, fuck, that almost traumatized me, because that was like
that thing means it. It's just going to do it. Doesn't care.
Yeah, no, like that's the scariest thing ever. Like I was far more scared of the ABC Warrior than I was of any Terminator or anything like that, because that thing was a freaking monster. Not only that, unlike, for instance, RoboCop 2, which was like this stupid walking thing that you even at the time could like tell was like stop motion and stuff. Ain't no stop motion there. That was a real fucking functioning thing. I was terrifying, and it can never be better.
So good. Yeah, and they've got the coloring right on it as well. Like it's not the color of Hammerstein, and it's not Hammerstein, but it is. You know, it is, but it isn't. And it just looks perfect for the world they created. The coloring was right, the movement was right, the red glow of the eyes.
And like how it was rusty, because it was like, this is like a century old and stuff or something, and it was like or 50 years or whatever, and you could tell like it was old and rusty, and it made like this like cranky noise and everything, but it still worked. Like it was like an old rusty tank, but it will run through everything.
Well, I even liked how he opened up he opened up the back of the head, didn't he, or the top of the head? I can't remember exactly what it was.
to
reprogram it, or to program it and turn it back on. Even that looked good. Like even like just so good.
Yeah.
So very, very good. And
Even
you
there-
wouldn't be able to make that today. You just wouldn't be able to do it today. It wouldn't look right. It'd be over CG'd. It would probably all be CG. They just wouldn't do it.
And it wouldn't look half as good because that it was being a physical prop that looked 100% photoreal.
Yeah.
Like if you built the Hammerstein, it wouldn't look any better than that. But also, I was like thinking that when he was like programming it and he started up, I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, how does he know what to say to it?
Yeah.
And what if he disagrees and tears his head off? Like, it was a scary thing.
Yeah. The lawgivers were pretty good.
I love the lawgivers; they were amazing.
And they kept it down. They kept the comic accurate nature of, you can't touch one if you're not a judge because they're imprinted genetically, and that set up a really a fun quip from Rico Asante. Well, guess I'm a judge, and dispatches the guy. But then they go down the whole. The main point of this film was all about bloody clones. And I was like, you don't need to do this. Was there there must have been a clone thing in Hollywood at the time. There must have been a weird clone thing in Hollywood. Like, I can't, because they follow trends. So there must have been a trend about clones. I think so anyway. But yeah, Rico coming back because he wants to have more of him, I guess.
That was so stupid, by the way. Did you notice that it's like this? There you could actually tell, like in at the time, I wondered what the hell happened with that. After the fact, now I can see that there they did some really horrible editing with the clones, because you have like all of these adult clones as part of like the storyline. And then they're going to bring them. He wakes them up to bring them up to speed right now.
Yeah,
and then it just cuts, and you never see them again.
Yeah, it was janky, very strange, as if they'd obviously filmed more, but then cut it out. I guess. I'm guessing anyway. Because I can't imagine there must have been more. There must have been more to it than that. Obviously. Very, very strange.
Yeah, so that was like one of like the worst editing things ever. Like, you build up this huge threat and then just cut, and it never happens.
Yeah, gone. See you later, mate. Bye. Like, all right, yeah, no worries then. Very, very strange. But yeah, all in all, great film. Mean Machine Angel and the Angel family, or the Angel gang, great. Very, very good. Very, very, very good. Pa Angel was great as well. Very much like Mean Machine Angel was great from the looked like the comics and stuff like that. But even the others, the whole family looked good. They all looked pretty close to the comics, I'd say. And yeah, like people in the chat will probably say, oh, sort of hillbilly trope and things like that. But that is what they're like in the comics. They are, they're in the cursed earth. And that is what they're like.
Not cannibals, though, but other than that, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it's as comic accurate, in terms of their interpretations, in that sense. So, yeah, it was. I thought they did them very, very well. Mean was good, best Mean Machine Angel you're going to get, I think. The prosthetic work was great as well, I think. Looked solid, looked very, very solid.
Yeah, it was great protest. Like, I don't think that a DREDD movie can look much better than this one did.
Yeah.
In anything, like the designs, apart from like the judges themselves, like the judge costume design, that was definitely bettered. But other than that, like the backgrounds, the extras, and like certainly the secondary characters, like the villains, like the angels, and yeah, the machine, and can't be bettered. I really don't think it can be bettered.
No, I agree. I agree. I don't think you're going to get it in. And if you got it today, I think it would be over. I don't know. I think, well, hey, I'd love it if they could do it today, and it would be great, obviously. But I think it would lack something if it was done today. Maybe an over reliance on. I don't know. I think having that sort of, whether it's the prosthesis that wasn't quite as good as what they can put out today, having it be like that made it seem a bit more real, I guess. I don't know. I can't put my finger on what it is, but I do think that they would, not make it as good today.
Yeah.
But then that brings us on to DREDD, doesn't it? DREDD 2012,
Yes.
or DREDD 3D, as it was also called.
It does indeed. Now, before we get into the movie itself, there is something that we have to nib in the bud here, and I saw that was mentioned on Twitter as well, and that has to.
Are you going to talk about the raid thing?
Yes, with the production history. That this movie right here, it was released after the raid, which is an Indonesian movie directed by. What's his name? Gareth something or something? Not Gareth Edwards, but the Welshman who directed.
No, that is Gareth Edwards.
Is it him?
Gareth Edwards. I think. Well, Gareth Edwards is the Welshman. I think.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, I think it's the director, whether it be Gareth Edwards or someone else.
Gareth Evans.
Evans. Sorry. Yeah. I think it was Gareth Edwards, but yeah, Gareth Evans. That movie was released a couple of months before DREDD, so everyone thought that DREDD was a ripoff of it. But if anything, it's the other way around, because development of the movie that was released in 2012 under the title DREDD. Development on it actually started in 2007. It went through many false starts, and the whole script, like the finished shooting script almost, was leaked online in 2009. It was called Peach Trees. I know it was leaked in 2009 because I was among those that read it in 2009. You even had, what's his name? Matt Wagner, is that the creator of Judge Dredd? Even he came out and confirmed that, this script is the real deal. That's what the movie is going to be like. It's going to be a really high-octane, kick-ass movie. I could deny that this is the script, but what would be the point? That was more or less what he said. So, that's the story. And I don't know if this is true. Maybe the raid was already far along, but I have heard some people say that what happened was that Gareth Evans, and I don't know if this is accurate, he got whiff of this leaked script, which was everywhere. So, whoa, this is really, really awesome. If I were to take like the future setting out of this, use like this general concept, and I leg off to Indonesia, I can make a movie of this in no time. And they admitted that they were rushing the production to get it out ahead of DREDD, which they did. So that's one thing. So, but and of course we'll get back to the raid later on. But to nip it in the bud, this thing here had been in development with this story since 2007, a passion project of Alex Garland. And
that's important. So he technically directed it, although it's Pete Travis, which is down as the director. It was Alex Garland that actually did it.
They only needed someone to hold the camera. That's what the credited director did, while Alex Garland did the real work.
Yep. Which you can see, you can tell that just from watching it. Go watch that and go watch. Well, even something as polarizing and by comparison as Ex Machina, you can see that it's very much a similar film stylistically.
Yeah. I can also but I can say I can also say why they chose Pete Travis, and that would have been because of the movie Vantage Point, which actually is a really, really cool movie. It's really fast-paced. It's really exciting. So they needed a director who could bring, because Alex Garland, he can direct things himself, absolutely. But the things that he directs in terms of pace, they are far more slower paced.
Yeah, they're very slow.
It's a fast-paced movie. And that is something that Pete Travis knows how to shoot. So that's basically what was his job. So the real director was Alex Garland, whereas the job of Pete Travis was to essentially function as the first AD and make sure that what was filmed would edit together fast-paced.
Yeah. Right. Before we go into our actual reviews of Dredd, got some super chats to come to. I've been saving them, so don't worry. If you want your super chat read out and things like that and discussing your points and stuff like that, please do keep leaving them. They really do help support the channel. So thank you. Obviously, those that do, it's a good way to interact with us as well. I'll be stopping periodically because I'm saving them up and we'll kind of discuss them periodically. But we had one from Durham Red, which says, no one does 2000 AD streams, so thank you for not just keeping it film here. I need an ABC film, and that was a £5 donation, so thank you so much. Yeah, no one really talks about 2000 AD on YouTube that much, to be honest. So yeah, I mean, obviously we are still talking about the films as well, but obviously we have to talk about everything to talk about Dredd, and the comics are included in that. And then we had one from Seal Bob for $5. Says, eat recycled food, it's good for the environment and okay for you. Best line of the movie. Of course, referring to Stallone's Dredd. True. Bloody good line, to be fair. Marcos A. Yeah, it is. Well, it's just funny, isn't it? Is that kind of just it exemplifies nicely 2000 AD, I think, to be fair. Marcos A for $4.99 says Carl Urban should have gotten a sequel, ? He's a wide range priest villain, Bone, Star Trek, Thor Ragnarok, The Boys, and Doom. We're going to cover that when we move forwards onto Mega City 1. Those that have watched my channel for any length of time will know I have interviewed the owner of 2000 AD, owner of Rebellion, the guy who's running all of this stuff. I do know a lot of, I do know about this stuff. So we'll touch on that and kind of discuss our thoughts on Carl Urban coming back and whether it's a possibility. The Emperor of Mankind for £2.50 says, evening all. Evening. Thanks for gracing us. The Emperor of Mankind. Thanks so much. And Jake Smeds dropped in for £1 to ask, is my film coming out on the 3rd? It's coming out the 3rd of April. So you've got a little while to go yet. Anyway, Dredd. I love this film. It is the perfect comic book movie. No one can say otherwise to me. I doubt it's ever going to be beaten in my eyes, to be perfectly honest. I just don't. I can't foresee it being beaten as a comic book movie, as an adaptation, as something which so perfectly encapsulates the world. Is it as comic book accurate as it could be? No, it's not. But is it a great adaptation and the perfect adaptation for people to receive in the modern day? Yes. So what I mean by that is the Law Master, right? The motorbike. It's not the motorbike from the comics, but it's an adaptation of the motorbike from the comics. And in motion, it's pretty much the perfect one. It works. It's really, really bloody good. Is the Lawgiver? Well, the Lawgiver is pretty close, to be honest. It's not the same shape, you know. It's not identical, but it's bloody close enough. They do give a new they hot shots a new one, if I remember rightly. So they do give new rounds programmed into it, but still, as an adaptation, it's probably the perfect adaptation, I would say. They even have the fatties in it, which is like a blink and you'll miss it moment. Andre, did you spot the fatties?
I did, of course. I was
I'm not being
No, no, no.
abusive to overweight people, but fatties are a thing in 2000 AD. And
Some of the best storylines are around fatties. I love the
exactly.
fatty stories. They're amazing.
And a fatty was in Dread, and it's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but it's there and it works and it's great. The commentary on recycling food and things like that, it's there. I've got 2 for recyc. It's there. It's just there. It's quick. It's a line that if you know the comic book, you know it, and it's there for comic book fans. The world itself is the best adaptation I think you can get. The block, Peachtree, as a block, is terrifying, amazing. I can imagine multiple ones of them going up for a block war, and it would be devastation, like exactly like it would be in the comics. So they and the suit, the costume, the helmet technology. Oh my God, we've come a long way from 95 Stallone. The helmet technology in Dread 2012, Dread 3D, best helmet technology ever. That helmet's amazing. It's the best. It is the best.
The entire suit. I love the entire uniform. Not just the helmet, but everything.
It's so tactical. It works. It's something which they would actually wear and could go out and do something in. It works. The badging works. It works. It's very, very good. Anderson, fantastic portrayal of Judge Anderson. Chief Judge Hershey, I think it was Chief Judge Hershey. The black Chief Judge, brilliant. A comic book movie with multiple strong females, epic. It was great. Can't beat it. It's a great comic book. Great comic book movie. Anyway, there's my quick overview. Your thoughts, good sir?
I agree completely. In terms of overview, I think this is the single greatest comic book movie of all time up until this point. Can it be beat? Yes, it can. But what it did so amazing, and this is a point where you can contrast it to the 1995 movie, which tried to be the best of the comics, like ripping off all of the major storylines and Frankensteinium them all together until just an abomination is left. This thing right here didn't do that. Instead, it's just one day in the life of Dredd. For Anderson, who is the point of view character, is like the most pivotal moment of her entire life. For everyone else involved, the side characters is a life experience, a life-changing event. To Dredd, it's Tuesday. And that's the beauty here. It's just one random day. And that is how you should make movies about not just characters like Judge Dredd, but Conan, the Punisher, a whole host of others who have like long serialized adventures. That's how you do it. You don't have to try to adapt one of those big storylines that can't be confined into a 2-hour movie. You just want to establish the character in the world and you see what comes next. Then you just do a day in the life of. That's what they did here, and it nailed it completely. And you have so much of the comics, but it's subtle, as you said. Like this whole like how unimportant life is. I have to say, like the intro to the movie is one of the best movie intros of all time. The score, my God, the score, like the beat in the beginning. It's like. That's what you need a stereo. That's why you need a home theater with a proper sound system, because that intro needs to be played loud. Has there ever been a better drum beat for anything that fits more perfectly? And at the same time, after like it's going to be spoilers, we take for granted that you see in the movie. After he's like hot-shotted the guys at the mall, you have like there's many casualties and everything like that. No one cares. It's just like this is a dangerous world. Life is kind of cheap right there. You have like the robot coming to clean up the dead people and the blood and everything. So to speak, a food court will be open in 30 minutes. It's like business as usual. No one really cares. And like the same with like this homeless guy who will debase himself for money.
I know.
That's you have so many things like that, and it's like. And it's like Dredd, he doesn't care. It's like, go debase yourself somewhere else. Be gone by the time we come back.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you completely nailed the character, just like the comics. Like Carl Urban, I was like amazed. I was like thinking, he has too round of a face for Dredd. You need someone with a more square and pointy jaw, like what's his face, Agent Smith in the Matrix. I was like thinking, you need someone with like a facial structure like that, not a round, friendly face like Carl Urban. But boy, he nailed it.
Yeah, no, he really did. He really did. I think what you said there is really good. Is that and this goes back to the comic, right? People that have read the comic will hopefully agree with me on this. Is that what you said there about Anderson being the point of view character? That is the comics. Dredd is never really our point of view character, right? We see the world, and we interact with Dredd through the comic, and yes, there are storylines where he is our point of view character, things like that. But it's quite rare. It's all the people that circulate around Dredd that interact with him that make those stories so interesting, and they're our point of view. That's how we learn a little bit more about Dredd. That's how we learn a little bit more about the world, and it's also how Dredd becomes more than, because he's not one-dimensional. But upon first glance, he would seem one-dimensional. But it's how the world and those storylines progress into that very three-dimensional sort of structure, and how he does progress as a character is through our point of view. So having Anderson there was just very, very smart, really, really smart. And what you said about life being just throwaway was perfectly exemplified, not only in everything which you pointed out, but also in the dialogue of Dredd with Anderson, when he's just reeling off the statistics, and he goes, yeah, most judges don't even last one day. They die on the job. Are you ready, rookie? Yeah. You don't look ready. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It is.
Just goes in hard.
Goes in really hardcore, yeah. And again, yeah, carry on, sorry.
I was just going to say, it is to this day the best use of slow motion technology and 3D technology in any film ever. You will never convince me otherwise. This is the best use of both technologies in one film. I hate 3D. I think it sucks. This film worked. Slow motion in this film worked. Why? Because it has a point in the actual movie. You take a drug, the world slows down. Well, fuck me. What a great idea. Let's use slow-mo then. So good. So good. Epic.
And I just have to give regards to my colleague Tom from Midnight's Edge, who said to say this: best use of 3D ever. And full credit for that goes to Alex Garland. And the reason for this is that this movie came in the aftermath of Avatar. So the funding partner for the movie, which was IM Global, an Indian hedge fund, they said that we fund this, but an absolute requirement is that this must be 3D. And Garland was like, I don't want it to be 3D. Don't care. If you want to make the movie, it's going to be 3D. And I'm like, okay, fine then. And then he brilliantly worked it into the story. And that was a big part of how like the slow-mo came about, because he was like, okay, if we're going to do 3D, we have to make good use of it. And in the slow-mo thing, they were able to make good use of it. However, I will say that there is one other movie that gives this a run for its money in terms of use of 3D. That's another movie that also incorporates the 3D into the storytelling. Tron Legacy.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not going to say that it's better. I will say that those two are a shared number one, because they both managed to incorporate the 3D into the storytelling to such a point that honestly I keep a 3D TV around just for those two movies. For every other 3D movie, I don't need to watch the 3D version ever again. But it was so successfully integrated into those two that it's worth keeping a 3D TV and my PlayStation 3 around just for that.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I see that. I see that.
Yeah.
Orange Hat Reviews actually says something really, really funny. And just great. Like it goes to the quips, which I think we'll get on into in a second. Was wondering when you would realize you forgot your helmet, sir. A helmet can interfere with my psychic abilities. I think a bullet would interfere with them more. Best quip lines in the movie. Yeah, this movie has some fantastic comic-based quips, like ones which you could see coming directly from the comic. Very, very, very good. Very, very good. Funny, quick, good quips. Do enjoy them. So let's go on to characterizations. So I think Olivia Thirlby was a fantastic Anderson. I think she did a really, really stand-up job as Anderson, first day on the job. And I'm pretty close to the characterization of Anderson as well. In terms of looks, it's not identical. You know, it's not absolutely identical. They did change the comic actually to look more like the actress in the end. But yeah, bloody good characterization. I thought she did a really good job. She brought that sense of humanity that was important, you know, to that character and to the justice system in Mega City 1, which she does in the comics. Yeah, really, really decent. And then Judge Dredd and the Judge Anderson dynamic. I feel like if we were to get a sequel, that dynamic would be right. Because in the comics, Judge Anderson stands up to Joe Dredd quite often, and has little quips with him and stuff like this, because they do know one another, you know, so much, and they have worked with one another through quite a lot of stuff. And I could see them both bouncing off one another in that way, which as a fan of the comic, when I'm watching that movie, I'm not only taking into account the story they're telling me, but the potential story to come, and if the actress was right for it, and also, you know, the actor of Carl Urban, and it was good. Like I could see that, and a lot of people in the chat are saying, and she's hot. Yeah, she's banging hot, definitely. Like
that helps,
of course.
It's not a requirement.
10 out of 10. Well, a comic version is like supermodel, so you would probably, it has to be similar-ish. And then Lena Headey as as Mama, Madeline Madrigal, or whatever the name was. Epic, absolutely epic, terrifying. Plays a junked up junkie pretty damn well. There's just this sort of, you know, fuck the world, I'm in charge, but also don't really care if I die at the same time sort of situation. I thought she did that really well. Yeah, really, really good. Your thoughts, good sir?
Well, the first thing I would like to say about that is that just to go back to the thing about Anderson having the character arc, that was a stroke of genius, and it's what saved the movie. Because like the downfall of the 99, or one of the downfalls of the Stallone movie, was that the Judge Dredd was the one that had to go through the arc to learn what kind of a victim that he really was, and he had to learn some humility. He had to learn that sometimes there are extenuating circumstances, and he had to learn what kind of joy can be had from work romance. That was like his arc in that movie, which makes like fans of the character throw up in their mouths, but that was the arc. Whereas here, the only thing that changes from the beginning to the end of the movie is that Dredd is like, okay, Anderson, you can't hack this too. Okay, you show that you can hack it. That's it. There's no other changes. So he's allowed to be Dredd throughout with no further changes.
No, he subtly changes. This is the thing. No, I've got to disagree. So he does. He subtly changes. And this is the thing about Dredd. And they did this in this movie perfectly. He obeys the letter of the law. Absolute. Dredd is the law. And yet in that movie, by the end of the movie, he lets it slide. He lets the law slide to allow Anderson the pass because she lost her gun. It's an instant fail. That's the law. Yeah. It's an instant fail. But by the end of the movie, and again, fans of the comic, hopefully you'd agree with me, it's that subtle character arc that Dredd goes through. And normally this is over like the span of a good few comics, you know, like quite a long story arc. But it's just that ever such a, she's a pass. And you go, he's changed. He's changed a little bit. There's a little bit of humanity there, you know?
I agree with that. And that's kind of like, maybe I didn't phrase it long, but that's like that's the extended version of that. Yeah, okay, you can hack it. That's the extended version. And you also saw like that, how they built that for later movies. When she read his mind, she was like, I see Stern but there's something else there.
Yeah, you stop now.
and then like, you stop right there.
Don't look any deeper.
That was kind of like the thing right there. But still, the point that I was making was that by giving her the arc, then he was allowed to be mostly unchanged, so that he could be the Dredd that we know and love throughout. And that is the key to the success of the movie. So just that was a stroke of brilliance. Other than that, the character of Anderson and her arc was fantastic. And like that's also like one of the watershed moments of the movie. It's like the first time when they find themselves caught in there, she's really out of her depth and everything, especially when the whole place is locked down around her. And their Thurlby's acting was fantastic. When they have stormed the room, they've killed everyone, there's just one guy left, they can easily let him live. But Dredd is like, the sentence is death. Carry it out.
Yeah.
And she has to look at him while she pulls the trigger.
Yeah,
and
which is called back later in the film as well.
Exactly.
Very nicely done. Very, very nicely done. We had a comment from Bright Glory I just wanted to address real quick. Let me see if I can find it again. But he doesn't obey the letter always. He let the homeless guy go. He actually didn't, because it was Judge Anderson that sentenced the homeless guy. He was just there watching. So the Judge Anderson sentenced the homeless guy, and he had to allow it to play out. It was her that was sentencing it. But then he died anyway at the end of the day. So it doesn't really matter, to be fair. But I would say technicality wise, it was Anderson that actually sentenced the homeless guy and let him go. But you raised an interesting point there, is that everyone's acting is top tier. Everything in this world is believable, except for one man's wig. Does anyone know the man I'm talking about?
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about, because that stood out to me as well. Well, of course, you can go and say that we probably shouldn't refer to him as a man. That's like misgendering. It might be a they. So they just might have been really ahead of the curve.
True. Well, in fairness, I'm thinking about the world, and they like the comics. They do have people looking, quite sort of bombastic with their hairstyles and stuff like that. So it's not that bad. Like, in fairness, it's pretty in keeping with the world. But goddamn, that is shameless. Everyone knows what I'm talking about here as well. Like, everyone's talking about it's great. That wig. I laugh every time I see that wig. People are saying it's so funny. So I think this movie, as you said, is so great and brilliant because it's not grandiose in its narrative. It's just one day. Here's our one day. Let's go about our business. And this is, I think, the problem of a lot of comic book movies, is that they always try to up the ante constantly. Let's go, up. And it's too much. It's too much, Let's just have a normal... The same as Batman, right? When we see Batman movies, why can't we just see one night? Why can't we see a night in Batman's world? Just go to Batman doing what he normally does.
Yeah. Honestly, I would be more interested in that than I would any of the other like epic high stakes movies.
Just
Like for
so
instance,
would I.
if you look at Batman v Superman, a movie there are very mixed opinions about. Most people don't like it, but that warehouse fight sequence to me stands out as the best Batman moment ever put on film. Now imagine if you just had like one movie like that, like not the whole movie fighting, but like there's something going on at the warehouse, gonna figure this out and like solve it. And so like the movie begins with his shift beginning as Batman beating lots of people up, ends with him coming back broken and beaten up, having a bath, and then that's it, business as usual. So that's why I like say that this thing right here, Dredd, that's the formula that any future Punisher movie, Batman should learn from. Like they should follow this formula because it nailed it.
And the possibilities are endless from there, because you're not using up loads of villains, you know, to make it this big, grandiose, like massive epic. You can just go, well, he's just tracking one guy.
You have all of the cool storylines left as well. That's like the brilliant thing, because the problem was with the 1995 movie, it used up Judge Cal, it used up Cursed Earth, it used up Judge
Angel
Rico,
Gang,
it used up Angel Gang. The clone storyline. That's like 5 storylines and counting, all burnt up in one movie. Whereas Dredd, we've been introduced to the character. We know what he's about. We know his world.
You also get Dredd being like exiled and all this kind of stuff. Like it's too much. It's way too much.
Yeah, that's like the Cal storyline.
yeah. That's just way too much stuff. Way too much stuff. So I think Dredd was perfect in that regard. That singular little just day in the life. The location that they filmed in as well was epic. It just worked. So good. So good.
The scary thing is when I was watching that movie, it's like it's filmed in South Africa, but really it looks like LA, which is like ironic.
I can see that,
because LA is like Mega City 2 and not Mega City 1. But when I was in LA and I was like up in that one skyscraper, you can like see the view. I was like thinking, this looks just like Mega City 1 in the movie Dredd. But anyway, the scary part was like that looks like a very realistic version of what our future is going to look like. I think that movie is going to hold up as prophetic in many ways, just looking at where history is headed. But again, that's a completely different discussion. But yeah, in terms of like movies that predict they don't claim to predict the future, but that take place in like the future, it seemed very future-proof more than many others.
Yeah, because it's not too grandiose in its exploration.
No,
it's just that people live on top of one another now. Like that's
like the problem with every movie that's from like the past 50 years or stuff that take place in the future, many of which takes place in a future that we have caught up with since the making of the movie. The future visions were all too grandiose, all of them. They were like too behind the curve in terms of like technology, like mobiles and stuff like that. But in terms of like the look of the world, they were way too grandiose. Whereas I think that Dredd is going to be fairly future-proof because it's so laid back in just that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would agree. So I think, I mean, let's talk about it from a technical perspective. So I absolutely love this from a cinematography level. I think the color grading was just, and an editing level as well, FYI. But the color grading was just, it's just. I can't fault it. Like the music blends seamlessly with it all, complements it. Like I think that when music is another character of a film, that's when you've nailed it. And when the music is another character in this film, how it like just accents stuff so just so viscerally, but then also so sort of euphorically with the slow-mo, which we learned was like a Justin Bieber song slowed down like to a millionth of a second or something like that.
Yeah, it's a Justin Bieber song slowed down 800 times or 800%. That it's slowed down 800%, I think it was, which would be 8 times slowed down.
Yeah. And they just nail it on so many levels. They nail this film. There's that one shot. Oh, goddamn. There's that one shot where Dredd does the incendiary round and the bullets, it's almost like it's like a mortar incendiary, isn't it? So it goes over.
Yeah.
And you can see it from the perspective of the people down below on the lower level where the phone box is. And it just glides down, explodes outwards, rains hellfire down on them all. And you can just see it in his eye, on the visor. What would be his eyes, but on the visor of the helmet. Fuck me, that is a
fantastic
shot.
Yeah.
That is a shot right there. It is beautifully done.
It also has,
just so well done.
It also has one of the single best reaction shots of the entire movie, which is not too far after that. When it's like when Mama thinks that he's done for now, and he comes back and he ends her number one enforcer and probably lover.
Yeah. Just chucks him over.
Chucks him straight over, and like just that look right there. That's like one of the best reactions ever. She, as you said, she's so good. She's so good in that movie.
Yeah,
and
it's not even just that, is it? I tell you what I love about that particular moment. Right, that particular moment in the film is so good because he doesn't run him out properly. He sort of quickly walks him out, just chucks him over, and then just walks off. Doesn't stop to really stare or anything like that. He just does it, and then he just walks off. Just walks off. That's it. Yeah. He's like, it's the ultimate fuck you.
Yeah.
It's like, I am going to take you out. You know, it's that I am going to take you out. It's you know what I said earlier? Mama, I'm coming for you. I am the law. Yeah, no, I meant it. You know, Mama's not the law. I am the law. Just fucking goddamn. I mean, obviously I think that scene is actually before that happens, if I remember rightly. I could be wrong. But so good. So good. It just exemplifies all of that. It's fantastic.
It's the perfect movie. It's a movie where I don't think there's anything you could do with any kind of editing or nipping or tucking or repositioning anything to make it any better.
Yeah. I think they did such a good job with the corrupt judges as well. Those corrupt judges were great. They were epic. When he walks in, he's like, choke on this, Dredd. And then, but no, mate. It's not Dredd that's going to be choking today. No, good sir, you are mistaken. Because you're going to have your whole throat caved in by Dredd's lawgiver. Unreal. Absolutely unreal. I just the way it sinks into this guy's neck, and he just stumbles down in front of his colleagues, the other corrupt judges, and then he just kind of falls down. Gets me every time. It's awful, but so good.
It's such a brutal movie, but it's just fantastic in every way. So like, is it weird that like I get so happy from seeing like the judges in costume, because to me like those costumes were so perfect, because they took like this honestly pretty ridiculous outfit from the comics, and they made it so believable on the big screen, made it so tactical.
Yeah. it just works. It just works so well. And when Genome Soldier says when the bodies hit the floor after being lobbed from the top of peach trees was bloody brutal. Hit the floor like a sack of shit. It really did. That was very visceral. It was just like just one after the other. Just awful. Absolutely horrendous. I tell you what I really did like. And we're going to get to super chats in a moment, guys. So if you do want your super chat read out, please do drop it down now. I've been saving them up. So again, super chats, drop them in the chat. The last final corrupt judge, when he gets Dredd and Dredd sinks down. So he just sinks down to the floor, and he's bleeding out and stuff like this. And the judge comes round and he goes, wait. And he goes, wait. The Judge Dredd. The Judge Dredd. This, blah, blah, blah. His final words are, wait for what? That whole monologue is great. Wait for one more second because you're too pitiful, to accept death and all of this. And then he just gets shot and he goes, no, wait for her. Like,
yeah, that was perfect. Like, really, that was like all he needed. It was like I need like 5 more seconds here, so just wait.
Yeah, like, wait for what? But that's the thing that I like so much is that the corrupt judge's reaction is legit what people would react like. They were like, wait for what? What are you talking about? Like, wait for what? Shut up! Like, you're about to die. But then obviously, someone pops up behind him by chance as well. I will say that whole moment is only by chance. That is a bit of plot armor for Judge Dredd in that moment, because it is like that is absolute plot armor. He didn't know Anderson would be there. He didn't know any of that stuff, so it is definitely plot armor. But it's a comic book adaptation, and we've got to have a bit of plot armor. So I liked it very much, and it worked.
It's no worse plot armor than I'm willing to accept.
Oh, there's worse stuff in like there's mountains of plot armor and other things. But let's get to some super chats now. So Valiant Renegade for $5 says LG OLED 4K with Oppo 4K player and Cambridge audio front end strapped to Joseph Audio Tower loudspeakers. Martin Logan sub. Dredd takes the roof off.
I can well believe that. That's serious equipment right there.
I don't know half of that stuff, so
I do. It's amazing stuff. Like I swear by Bowers and Wilkins speakers myself. There's some great British speakers. But yeah, with the equipment that you just said, with like the sound decoded by Oppo, who are like the absolute prime of the prime in players, and with that system, yeah, that's gonna take the roof off. Neighbors will be complaining.
Yeah,
but it'll be worth it. This is for a good cause.
Finbar White for £10 says, "Hey, Mr. H and Andre, enjoying the stream tonight. Dredd was a good film. Like I said the other night, good films tell simple stories. If they made a new Dredd movie today, how about Hugh Jackman as Dredd? Too short for a Dredd. Yeah, no, I wouldn't like him as Dredd, I don't think.
He wouldn't be. Of course, he could do it. He's one of a million actors who could do it. But
he could, but he wouldn't be my choice.
No, he wouldn't be my choice either. Not at all.
He'd be fine, I guess. He's he's almost like an obvious choice in some regard. Like Tom Hardy would be an obvious choice to some people. You say, well, Tom Hardy could do it. You go, yeah, I'm sure he could.
But you know what? You have for every actor like Hugh Jackman, you have 10 who are slightly like less prolific, who would be so much better at it. Like for instance, my go-to example there is Van Helsing, and in Van Helsing, the character that he plays is so much Van Helsing as it is Robert E. Howard's Solomon Kane under another name. You know what? There also is another Solomon Kane actor or movie, and I always forget the name of him who plays. I have to look it up here. He's also in Rome. He's fantastic in it. I guarantee you know him.
I'll probably know when you say it.
Oh yeah. I guarantee you that that you will. It's James Purefoy.
Oh yeah.
And when you see James Purefoy as Solomon Kane, and you compare that with how Hugh Jackman played him, that's when you see what a rip-off Hugh Jackman really is. So if you say Hugh Jackman, then I counter James Purefoy, who would be so much better. And there are so many others. So yeah, Jackman would be fine, but he would be far from my choice.
Yeah, I'd agree. Comrade Commissar Yuri for $4.99. Again, thank you everyone who does do super chats. Thank you all so much. It's great to interact. Obviously, when we do these kind of some live streams, we interact a lot more with the chat. And I love the fact that everyone turns up to these things. I'm so appreciative and so thankful for the community we're growing on these live streams. I genuinely, I've even speak to Andre before the stream starts about this stuff. It's fantastic. So thank you all so much. Some streams lend themselves better to interacting at certain points. But the super chats are a great way to not only support the channel, but also a great way to get us to interact with your comment, if you need to leave or something like that before we get to everything.
Speaking of, sorry, carry on. I'll say it afterwards.
I was just going to say, Comrade Commissar Yuri says, I like how they actually set up Kay with blowing his arm off with the lawgiver. Yeah, it was a good setup. It worked really, really well. Nice, again, good quips, good one-liners centered around all of that. It was very, very funny. What were you going to say?
Yes, I was going to highlight a comment from Evil Alex, who says, Mr. H and Andre, did you both know that Paul Verhoeven wanted to direct a Judge Dredd film, but couldn't get the rights and instead made RoboCop? He sent this at 10:20 your time. Evil Alex, you are close to the truth, but not entirely there. Here's the thing. It wasn't Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven never wanted to make a Judge Dredd film. It was the writer, Ed Neumeyer. He was the one who was attached in writing a Judge Dredd movie that never happened. So when that project collapsed, then he set up his own Judge Dredd movie, and he called that RoboCop, where he just changed it up enough that he could get away with it. So RoboCop did start out as Judge Dredd. This is 100% true. This is why RoboCop says so many of the signature lines of Dredd, like "Dead or alive, you're coming with me," and all of the humor in the movie, the news reports, all of this are from Ed
satire, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all from Ed Neumeyer's draft of a Judge Dredd movie that never happened, and that's how they made it into the RoboCop movie. And those elements were what attracted Paul Verhoeven to RoboCop to begin with. Or to be fair, actually it was his wife, because he took one look at the title and threw it away, and then his wife was the one who read the script and said, you know what, there's some brilliant stuff in here, you should read this. And then he read it, and then he loved it. So Evil Alex, you are right as far as the gist goes, but it wasn't Verhoeven, it was Ed Neumeyer.
Interesting. Neat Switch for €5 says, it makes me quite angry that we haven't gotten a sequel to that effing good movie. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And the sequel, they were going to be doing the Dark Judge storyline. They were going to start bringing that in. That was the plan anyway. From what I know about it, that was the ultimate end goal. They were going to start laying the groundwork for the Dark Judges, which I think would have been really, really interesting to see. I don't know ultimately whether it would have worked in that world that they had established, just because they established a really realistic world. So to bring Judge Death and, Judge Fire, Judge Fear into it, I don't know whether it would have worked, but I still would have been, it would have been epic to see, wouldn't it, really?
I was never a fan of them wanting to go in that direction. I felt that was the wrong direction to go, in this sense, I'm kind of like glad that it didn't happen, because I don't think they would have been able to pull it off. I think that what they should have gone with is the democracy storyline. That is something that would lend itself
Yeah.
much better to what was established. That there was something else going on that Anderson couldn't quite read. It was probably doubt, and that could like be brought into a forefront into the democracy storyline that would lend itself very, very well to that world. I mean, you practically had like Judge Lex setting it up, saying that basically like this whole city is just one big meat grinder and we're just turning the wheel. I mean, right there, you have the setup for the democracy storylines. That was like the natural progression, forcing Judge Death into that world. You know, you do that in movie number 6 after you've beaten everything else to death and you've jumped the shark. That's when you like bring in Judge Death. Maybe then you recast Carl Urban or something. Then you go Judge Death. Then you go fatties and like really, really ridiculous. But before
I think Judge Death could have worked in say like movie 4. I think because
movie 4, absolutely.
Yeah, because you can slowly, steadily up the ante with the world and things like that. It still would have been interesting. I think that stylist, that cinematography and that aesthetic that they created, if they could get Judge Death in it, it would have been probably one of the most horrifying Judge Death iterations we'll ever get. If they could have nailed it.
Yeah, I think so too. But they needed to go the democracy storyline first, and then they could go into the cursed earth where we could visit the mean machine. You could like dig up the corpse of Hammerstein, something like that. And once you've done that thing, then maybe when you've like explored all of the nuts and bolts and the grit that really worked for the first movie, then after you've done Mean Machine, then you can go into the realm of Judge Death.
Yeah,
but there's no point in bringing that out too soon.
No, I agree. So getting back to super chats real quick, Marcos A for $4.99 says, "Hail the round table, Mr. H and Andre. Good seeing you again. Mama was such a badass. No wokeness, just strong, independent woman leading ruthless men." Yeah, they nailed strong women in this film. There were multiple strong women in this film. 3, in fact. There was only one strong man, really, and that was Dredd. You had Chief Justice, black woman, strong, chief of the judges, for God's sake.
I mean, the movie was diverse without being woke, like fantastic.
Yeah. But that's the thing. There's no issue with any of those things when it's done appropriately, and that was done appropriately. It just worked. It just existed, and that's what it should be. It was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. Ipkiss sent $2.99, but nothing. So thank you so much. I can't read out a super chat. There's no super chat there. But thank you so much either way. Eddie-rific USN Vet says there's also Judge Death within the storyline for Judge Dredd. So going back to what we said a second ago. So yeah, that's what they were planning. And that was for $5. Thank you so much, Eddie, my dude. We had one from Azriel Razor for $5. Says, wasn't the main reason they wanted Anderson was she was an OP psychic, and that she would be like the Looper kid if she wasn't under their control.
Kind of. That's they basically said that she had failed like the tests earlier to be a judge by Slim Morgan, but she had failed nonetheless. But she was allowed to carry on just because they deemed her special abilities to be valuable and beneficial. So yeah, there's absolutely something to that, and I think that actually really worked because they make it work within the story. Whereas say that she lives in the compounds close to the cursed earth, where there's loads of radiation and stuff, and loads of mutations happen there, and this one was beneficial. Not the only one, but the strongest one. So
Yeah, I agree.
Made it work.
Celador AU says, I don't see any of these super chats. Do they appear somewhere else? No, they've been sent in the chat. I have just had to save them. And then I can't show them up on the screen like I'm doing with yours, because these are things. Some of these are like 20 minutes old at the moment, so that's why I can't bring them back up on the screen.
Yeah.
I can't stop every time someone sends one when we're deep in flow. So that's why I'm saving them up, coming back to them, and then discussing them as points where we can actually engage with the points a lot more, and actually give people the time that they deserve when they send a super chat. Really, it's better that way, I think. Yeah. Comrade Commissar Yuri sent $4.99 and said best scene. Obviously, this is relating back to what we said when he throws Caleb, that was the guy's name, over the side after they used all that firepower. That was the beauty of it, wasn't it? They bring out these two massive machine guns, and they're just destroying. They're killing loads of people. Everyone that lives on that level just dead, right? Everything's obliterated. It's just destroyed, and then he still survives, and he kills a right-hand man. Bye-bye, Caleb. Bye-bye. Yeah.
That's pretty hardcore right there. And again, that brings us to like her look, like fuck, she killed her lover or likely lover and number one enforcer, and he's killed his way through so many men. Like, is there no fucking stopping this guy?
Well, exactly. He was, but I think, isn't there even a line to that effect in the film? I'm pretty sure there is.
I don't recall, but I think there must be like a line to that in there.
Just real quick, Phil there says, how do you become a member? I think that there's if you just look on the stream or just below the stream, it will say something like become a channel member, I think. Or even if you just go to the homepage, you can do that. I think. I don't know where it turns up exactly. Neats Witch for €5 says, DREDD had a budget of around 50 million. Rise of Skywalker around 300. Talking about numbers, that hurts. But this goes to what we're saying about story, right? Is that it's just a day in the life. You can keep it small and epic, right? The story can be epic but small. It doesn't have to be grandiose. It could be an absolutely amazing story, but on a small scale. All these other movies, like Star Wars, again, they're always thinking about these massive things that they have to do, tell these huge sagas. But they could just go down, a smaller narrative, They could do. They have been doing it, I guess, with The Mandalorian in some senses, although that's still a pretty expensive show. But yeah, you're right. It's the use of money, isn't it? Like, it's eye-watering what people spend money on these days. It's crazy.
What's really eye-watering, and maybe it's time to get into that, since I think we've covered the movie itself and how great it is in sufficient detail, is that at a limited budget of somewhere between 30 and 50 million, it was still a financial flop. That's the really eye-watering, because at this budget, it should, by right, have been a massive hit, and we should have been like on movie 6 by now.
Yeah,
that's what should have happened with that budget, but it didn't. Even with such a low budget, it flopped in the US. You didn't even know it was coming out in the UK. And it didn't come out theatrically in most territories around there. Like, for instance, how I saw it? I saw it opening weekend in London. You know why I saw it opening weekend in London? Because it wasn't coming out in Norway for like another 2 months. And I wanted to see it day one. So I was like able to orchestrate a business meeting that I had in my day job in London. I was like able to shift it to coincide with that weekend, so that I could see the movie in Empire Theatre in Leicester Square with a friend of mine from my days at uni. And it was awesome seeing it there on the big screen. It was horrible that him, me, and 50 others were the only ones in it.
Yeah, I think when I went to watch it, I'm pretty sure it was me, and you could count on one hand how many people were in the theater. And I'm just watching. I'm looking around, going like, "What the fuck? Like, this movie's epic. What? Where is everyone? What is going on?" which we'll get on into in a second. Let me catch up with these super chats, guys, in the chat, and then we will get on to why this movie failed ultimately. Not that it is a failure, because it's an epic movie and it wins as a movie, but is a failure financially. And then we'll get on to Dredd the series as well. Neat Switch for €5 says, I love that shot from above when Dredd fires phosphor, pyro, and ammo. The incendiary rounds. It's an epic shot. Beautiful cinematography. Ipkiss for $4.99 says he's a force of nature, beat to hell and still plowing forward. It's not in his DNA to quit. Yeah, I mean, well, quite literally. I mean, he is, he's a clone, isn't he? So he is supposed to be the best of every single judge, the quintessential judge. That's hard to say quick. Lee P for £5 says it was such a shame that they didn't back a 2D release in cinemas. It would have probably saved the film and greenlit a sequel. Bring Carl Urban back. So we'll delve into this a little bit more. Would you have wanted a 2D release? I think that would have been a bit, I don't know.
Actually, I think that would have helped, because here's the thing. At the time, when the movie was greenlit, 3D was a requirement. By the time it got out, people were burned out on 3D, and many deliberately stared away from 3D releases and went to 2D releases instead, where they had the option. On Dredd, there was no option. It was put out in 3D only, everywhere. So you didn't have the 2D option. And I think that absolutely drove some people away. But that wasn't what killed it. That wasn't the big issue.
No, which we will get on to. I've got a lot of super chats I need to catch up with, which again, thank you all so much, guys. Neat Switch for €5 says that plot armor moment makes the moment so funny, a delicate thing to do. If wrongly done, it sucks, but here pulled off brilliantly. Yes, and agree. And when we covered that, some people said it's not plot armor because he knows that she can read minds. Yes, but he still is relying on her turning up, which is plot armor. I will still contest that is definitely plot armor. Eddie Ruffic USM Vet says, watching Dredd with focal speakers, front, center, rear surround, and subwoofer, and a Marantz receiver, not blowing the roof off, but still fun.
That subwoofer is important to get like that real rumbling, and if there is any movie where the subwoofer really made a difference, it's Dredd, because like all of the sounds here are like in the lower spectrum. So unless you have a proper bass, you're not going to get the most out of the sound. So like you don't need like a full 7-in-1 system, but you do need a big speaker that has good bass speakers in them to begin with, plus a subwoofer to get the best effect, because only a subwoofer can give like that rumble that you really need to fully enjoy the sound as it was meant to be.
I completely agree. Orange Hat Review says Dredd going brutal on Kay, then Anderson turning his head into a house of horrors, even using Mama. Great touch to show Anderson having a mean streak. That is great. It's like he says it. He says it so just so sort of matter of factly when he's like, "Oh, well, if it's your fucked up head versus my fucked up head, I'm gonna win." And it's like, "Yeah, no, that's not how it works in here." It's like, you're done. You're absolutely done in this situation.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love that. Neat Switch says Robocop definitely has a Dredd feel. Yep.
Yeah. That is not a coincidence.
No. And our last super chat, we're now caught up. This is at 10:31 from Richard Rodriguez. Says 30 more days for GVK. Lol. Off topic, I know. Yes. A lot of people have been wondering why I'm not doing any more GVK trailers. I'm not watching anymore. I'm done because they seem to be revealing too much, and I want some cinematic reveals when I watch the film. I did post it over on Twitter, so it's really important to follow me over on Twitter at Miss8 Reviews. It's literally just this here, because I post some stuff to let people know what I'm doing, and I posted it there. So yeah, I won't be covering anymore unless they reveal a new trailer, like an actual feature trailer 2. Then I'll watch that and I'll do a video on it. But there you go. Right. So why didn't it do very well then, Andre, my man?
Well, there are many, many reasons for it. You have many things that come together, and ultimately, to me, they boil down to one. But before we get into that one overarching reasons, let's look at the different ones that all conspire together. One is, of course, the 1995 movie. And because that was a complete and total bomb, it ended Stallone's reign as an action hero, whatever other benefits it may have had. One of the most enduring legacies of it was something that I saw someone mention in the comments a couple of times. This meme where you have like Stallone and Asante screaming "law" at each other. Like some even like made like this dubstep thing with like different music and everything in the background. It's like a funny thing of like
that'll be epic.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. It's like actually nice and chill to listen to actually. Where you have like that's like remixed to like this 3-minute like long chill dubstep thing, like the two screaming "law" at each other. So that was kind of like the enduring thing. And like the reaction was like, why would anyone remake that Stallone movie? Because like so many other things, to most people, that Stallone movie was synonymous with Judge Dredd. They didn't think of a comic book strip that was underserved by the movie. They were thinking Stallone's slurring, "yeah." That's what it became. So that was something to overcome. And then another thing was the distribution situation. And again, this all ties together. This movie wasn't made by one of the big production companies like Fox or Paramount or Warner or anything like that has like distribution all sorted out. For all intents and purposes, Dredd was an indie film
It was made
by DNA, funded by primarily that Indian hedge fund.
I Am Global.
Anyway, I Am Global. Thank you. So they were the ones that put money up for it, and then DNA, Alex Garland's production company, was the one that to actually make it. But them alone, that's practically an indie company. You need a big distribution partner. And they actually had to make the whole movie, and that's part of the reason why it's so good. There was no corporate overload to say how the movie had to be and everything, other than I Am Global that demanded it had to be 3D, something that would actually come to harm it by the time the movie was ready for release. So they had to like look for independent distribution. So you had like one partner, one company picking it up in Scandinavia, another picking it up in France, a third one picking it up in Spain, a fifth one picking it up in you had like 40 different distributions all over the world. So what happens then is that then you have like these small local indie distributors themselves. Like everywhere, it's small indie distributors, and they don't have their own marketing material departments for the most part, so they rely on the marketing material they will get from the production company. And in the case of an independent movie like this, they don't have any. The marketing material will be the ones that they get from the US distributor. And here, this was the movie's real downfall. The American distributor, the ones that picked it up in America, was Lionsgate Films. And so Lionsgate would be the ones to head up the marketing campaign, produce the marketing material, and this was then the material that was given to every other distributor elsewhere. Now, this all would have worked fine had it not been for one thing. Lionsgate had the notorious worst marketing department in the entire business.
It wasn't just that. It was one person that actually didn't believe in it either. He didn't like it, didn't want it, didn't want anything to do with it, wasn't happy to promote it, didn't like it.
Yeah, that would be him. That's the one person. That's the marketing guy. One guy. And if he didn't like the product, if he didn't believe it, you could tell from the marketing material.
Yeah.
And you could totally tell from this thing right here. Like the posters were fine. They were very basic, but no more than that. But what really killed it was the trailer. Like typically you have like 2 or 3 trailers. DREDD got one trailer, and it was off. Because what the marketing material had to do, it had to basically tell audiences in not so many words, yes, we are aware that there was a Judge Dredd movie before, but forget all about that because we have something really awesome in store for you. This is a great story. It's going to be really fast-paced. You're going to have a great time in the theater. Look at the cliffhanger we'll leave you on. Now go see it. That's what the marketing campaign had to be. What was it instead? It was super slow, ethereal, with the music from La Rouge.
Yeah, going in for the kill or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Really slow, ethereal, didn't say anything about the 95 movie, didn't say anything much about the story. It wasn't even like a full-length trailer at like 2 minutes 30 seconds. It was like 1 minute 45 or something. And it was just that one trailer, which utterly failed to give anyone that wasn't going anyway a reason to see it.
Yeah.
And that killed the movie more than anything else.
Well, again, it just wasn't marketed. I mean, in the home country of DREDD, because a lot of people don't know, but it is British. DREDD is British. Judge Dredd, the character, is a British character. It just wasn't around. Like no one, I didn't know where it was. I didn't know it was coming out, and then I see it. I'm like, what? There's a DREDD movie. Great. I'm going to go watch it. Awesome. Cool. Where was this then? Like, what was going on?
I just have to say, good night, the Harlequin, who's in South Africa, where this was filmed, and where it actually was heavily advertised. So we hope you got to hear it. Didn't check off like it had 5 seconds before I said that. You might have, but
hopefully not.
But yeah,
hopefully not. But yes, good night, the Harlequin. So yeah, it was a massive shame that this film flunked, and then we go on to its legacy. I guess like this film has a huge legacy, and a lot of people have been saying it in the chat, saying like it's criminally underrated. It is going to be a cult classic. I think it already is a bit of a cult classic.
Oh, it is absolutely.
And I think that that's only going to improve as it moves along. As the years go on. But the legacy of this film has been long and lasting. Anyone that sees it is always blown away by it. I don't think many people dislike this film. It's a fantastic film. And then it's shuffled on now even further to this sort of godlike symbolism. People are like, oh, well, it's going to, we're getting a series. And then people are instantly, it's a sequel to DREDD, and oh, it's this, and oh, it's going to be this, and oh, it's going to be that. And it's also been a big talking point for Carl Urban throughout his career after it, because obviously he championed it, and like props to him for championing it. He did really well, because there was a lot of people that were like, by the DREDD Day, it was called, wasn't it? I think there was #DREDD Day.
Yeah, it was like by campaigns.
And he championed that, and he's been a big champion of it and things like that, and that's really, really good. But Talented Moron says it made records on Blu-ray sales. It did, it absolutely did. But it has just become this massive thing that like you're never going to get a sequel to it. You're not going to get a sequel to it, and a lot of people wrongly look. You may get a sequel to it, but Rebellion would have to buy the rights sort of to that version of DREDD back. And they haven't wanted to do a sequel to it. So they've been doing this, trying to plan this series since 2000 and I want to say 16, 17, I think it was now. And I've interviewed Jason Kingsley, the CEO of Rebellion, the owner of Judge Dredd, the character, the owner of Rebellion Studios. And he said out and out straight away, he was like, this is not a sequel to Dredd. This is not what this is. But it's been this massive sticking point that loads of people in the media have just pushed, despite there being confirmation from the horse's mouth, so to speak, that it was never going to be a sequel to Dredd. Because people want it so much, so they know that it's good clickbait, basically. But yeah, what do you think about this sort of legacy and things like that? I've kind of yammered on a little bit there.
Well, the legacy of the movie, I think, is that of a proper cult classic. That it's something that more and more people discover, and that they're kind of like blown away by, like whoa, this is something completely out of this world. How good this really is. But again, that doesn't help when you have a movie that failed so badly at the box office. It never got the push it needed. Most people that see it do love it, but they have to see it first. And I think there's more people that haven't seen it than that do have seen it. What I will say, though, is that it cleansed many people's palates of the 1995 movie. It did in no way, shape, or form poison the well. So it absolutely laid the seeds for a later follow-up. Now, of course, everyone wants to see this story continue, to see Carl Urban reprise the role. And that obviously would be like the best course of action. But even if that weren't to happen, if it was a complete reboot, which is what Rebellion has been working on, I think even that would be well received, as long as it's the right reboot and it still tells a great story.
Yeah, so I've been privy to a lot of that stuff. I've been to Rebellion's headquarters. I've seen walls of concept art. I saw the initial pilot script, for instance. The initial pilot script that they said, yeah, it's done, it's signed off, it's all good to go, before they had to scrap it because they had issues with Mark Stern and I Am Global, and they had to Mark Stern, formerly of I Am Global, and then his own, set up his own company, basically, who essentially tried to claim the rights to that script for there was a weird rights issue going on. This is the problem, ladies and gents, is like when we say, they can't really do it, it's all because of rights. There's weird legalities that get involved in these things. And I really liked that. I really liked that pilot. I thought it was good. But it doesn't matter because they changed it all. They had to, and that's all documented. It's well documented how they changed it and they went back to the drawing board. And yeah, it was interesting to kind of watch that play out. They seemed so, because again, I interviewed them before anyone even knew what I looked like. And I still speak with the former producer to this day. I consider him a friend, to be honest. He's a good guy, good chap. And they seem so keen. They seem so ready to go. And a lot of people have been saying, yeah, well, Carl Urban, he wants to do it. He's ready to go. Yeah. They would want him back as well. But he did have some quite obscure demands of Rebellion Studios, a brand new production company, that they just wouldn't have ever been able to meet. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy for wanting those things. I think I told you them, didn't I, at the time? Did I tell you?
Yeah, you mentioned some of them, yeah.
Yeah. They're not out of the realms of possibility for a big Hollywood studio, right? That's fine for Hollywood, but not for a fledgling production company. It just wouldn't work, would it?
Yeah, no. It was from what I gathered, there were like two things there. One is that he could probably have been a little bit more forthcoming on his end, but that he wasn't, suggests to me, and this is just my opinion, I don't know, so this is just my opinion, but in my opinion, I think that he wasn't sold on the direction that they were going.
Well, so I can confirm that. So I can confirm that because it came down to him saying, "Yeah, I want to be in it, but I need to be in it more." So they adjusted some bits and pieces, or they tried to, but then they were like, "Well, we're not going to add it. We can't do any more. Like, there's no way." And then he added a few more layers of demands as well around it, because the whole core concept of Judge Dredd Mega City 1, and they said this in the interviews. If you go back and watch the interviews that I did with them, just Google Mega City 1 interview on YouTube, Missed Reviews. It should turn up. It was a long interview. Is that it's not about Dredd? This is a series about Mega City 1 and the universe of Mega City 1. So it was never really about Dredd as that character. He was never actually the core character. It was always going to follow an ensemble cast, and then Dredd would rotate in and out. That was what it was. That's what the series was going to be. I'm not sure whether it's now developed into anything else. No idea, because it's just all over the show now. It just seems to have just disappeared.
And in my honest opinion, again, I haven't read any script. I haven't read a single script of it. That's all I know, literally all I know, that Dredd, he was going to be there, but he wouldn't even be in every episode. And that one of Carl Urban's demands was that he needed to be in it more. I think that he was right. I know that Rebellion owns it. They can do what they want with it. But I think, in my opinion, just based on that they were heading down the wrong direction. And I
disagree.
Opinion.
I disagree. Having read this,
yeah.
Well, just
you read it. I haven't.
Well, no. So I say that I disagree only from this perspective. Right, is that having Dredd is a difficult, and let's relate it back to Dredd the movie. Dredd being in the series, great. Let's have him in the series, but he can't be our point of view character. He can't be. You have to have other people around him to shape and flesh the world out, to ask questions that need to be asked for us, the viewer, to explore the world properly and explore the characters properly. Because Dredd, without other people to bounce off and actually be our point of view characters, becomes seemingly one-dimensional. He's not, but he is seemingly one-dimensional. And without a series that is going to be 5 seasons long, you're not going to see that slow, steady progression that he gets throughout the comics. It would become too rushed. So I never hated the direction that they were going in with it. Having read the pilot script, it was a good pilot script, and it worked. Obviously, I don't know how they would have done further episodes, but he was there. Whether he was physically there or mentioned and his legacy and legend discussed, he was there. He was ever present and he was felt, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but I still feel that that's a good introduction to the character, but the series shouldn't be like that, because then it's a Judge Dredd series, merely guest starring Judge Dredd, and I do think that that's the wrong way to go for a series like that. I can see why you would want to introduce it like that. You do like a 2-hour pilot that's like that, where he and the world is reintroduced through the eyes of someone else. You could argue that the Dredd movie was like that Anderson was the real lead, and we see him through her eyes. And you would want to introduce it that way. But after that has been made, then I think that he needs to be the lead character. Of course, there can be an ensemble for him to interact with, but he needs to be front and center. And of course, they can make it work if he isn't. But I think that's going to be much, much more challenging to make work, especially if he's not even going to be in every episode, because then it's no longer his series. Then it's a series of someone else entirely.
But it was always called Judge Dredd. It was Judge Dredd Mega City 1. Mega City 1 was the headline.
Yes, I know, and I think that's the but I don't think
this is
that's
where
the
the
right way
media.
to sell it.
But I think this is where the media plays a really bad perception on it all. Is that they sold it as a Dread series? It's not. It's a Mega City 1 series.
Yeah.
You know, that I think that was the key difference. There is a lot of people are like, oh, it's a Dread series. No, like it was always Mega City 1. It's Mega City 1 is a very interesting place. There's lots of interesting things that happen there. I fully agree with where you're coming from. Like I'd still love to see a Dread series, absolutely. But you still need all the other people to bounce off them and things like that.
Yeah.
And like I say, there was all that weird situation with Mark Stern, which I assume had to have been a legality issue because he had it all stored up on his website. Like I've done reports on it. So I'm paraphrasing all this stuff at this point in time. You can go back and watch my actual reports on it, which are very in-depth. But yeah, there was all that issue. And now it just seems to be dead in the water, which is a huge shame. Just lying around, doing nothing. Although I do know Rebellion have just released, finally, their first actual movie based on some of their properties, produced in-house, shot in-house. School's Out Forever, which is like a post-apocalyptic virus movie. So maybe that's a sign of things ramping up. I don't know. No idea.
Well, to me, that's only a sign that they got their studio working, that they have some production pipeline working. If that's a sign of any Judge Dredd to come, that I don't know.
So if everyone remembers, Variety had the exclusive that Rebellion had purchased an actual studio lot, an actual studio space in Oxford. I was the first person to visit that studio space. I visited that space. It was massive. An old printing press. Fucking huge. Really cool place as well, actually. But yeah, unless they have completely gutted, because again, like speaking to them and walking around it, like they had massive plans very specifically for that location, as just a Dread movie, Dread series sort of lot. You know, that was all it was going to be. They were going to change one room into one bit into an underground bit, so on and so forth. But then everyone involved in that has now gone. So that's the other thing to keep into account, is that everyone who was producing Mega City 1, the original series that was announced, is now gone. They're not involved in it anymore. So that sets it back even further. And now we're like, well, years down the line now. Because I think they'd initially said they wanted this released in 2018, or I think, again, I can't remember. I'm throwing these numbers off the top of my head. I'm pretty certain it was 2018 they were looking at, or 2019 they were looking to get stuff out. And now we're years down the line and it's not even entered in production.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to happen even at this point. I think that they want to, but then they're going to have to start. Well, maybe they have without us knowing. That, of course, could be. But I would like it to be. I would love for them to be much further along than we think. But
yeah, Thundercats HO has said, Jason Kingsley said that they have the film rights back and wanted to make a sequel in either the film or more likely TV series in July. He says scripts are written. Would you like the link? But again, he doesn't have the film rights to that specific iteration unless he's purchased them back from IM Global, because that thing is very specific, you know.
Yeah, they'd have to start completely over. Yeah, exactly as you say. Like, it has to be, to those that follow Midnight's Edge, he would have to make it 25% different.
Yeah.
because that's a particular iteration that is not owned by him. He owns
owned by multiple financiers at this point.
Yeah, but he doesn't. So it would be far easier to do like an in continuity reboot where they change everything up a little bit, but they can't like follow it 100%, because that would be very expensive and just difficult all around.
Well, I mean, I'll explore this after the stream and have a look. But even if he does say he has the film rights back, well, it's still starting from scratch. I mean, they've had scripts for they. Yeah, I'll have to have a look. I mean, I'll have a look and I'll see. I'll be really surprised if a lot of what he's saying is going to be true. I'm not calling him an out-and-out liar. I just know that there's a lot involved in that's not immediately obvious, and that he may be playing up to the press, if that makes sense. I don't know if you got any further thoughts on that, but it just doesn't sound right to me.
Well, they've had like the movie rights for years,
but they own the character, so they can do what they want with it. That's the thing. They lease the rights out. They lease the character out to IM Global, so that character that they made, that version of Dredd, that world of Dredd they made, is not Rebellion's. It's so they lease the rights out for IM Global to make that film, but they don't own that film. Right? They don't own the rights to that film. They don't distribute it. They don't sell that film. That's so. So him saying he's got the film rights, he's always had the film rights because he only leased the character out to IM Global for a set amount of time. I mean, that's my understanding of it, and that's what they said in the interview. They never want to do that again. They just want to work in house. So they can't. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Again, any thoughts?
I don't have anything to add to that. Like, it's theirs to basically do with as they please. If they want to get a Dredd movie or series rolling, they can. Like, nothing is stopping them other than finding the right people to do it for them and having the right take. And I question if they had the right take. We can agree to disagree on it, but I still question that they had the right take, and I think that the reason that they lost, that we don't have it right now, really boils down to that they fundamentally wanted to go the wrong direction. That, more than anything else, is what I think lost them Carl Urban. And I think that all the other problems and the whole thing collapsing fundamentally can be traced back to them really going the wrong direction. Yeah, it was a Mega City 1, but maybe making a Mega City 1 series is the wrong direction. Maybe you begin by making a Judge Dredd series, and then later on you can make a Mega City 1 spin-off series.
Yeah.
But making a Mega City 1 series guest starring Judge Dredd, I think, and I will always think, was the wrong call, and it's the reason why we don't have one. And on the off chance that Jason Kingsley, that's his name, right? Jason Kingsley is listening to
the CEO of Rebellion.
Happen. Like, I have some experience in these matters. I'm not going to claim to like be a massive producer or something, but I'm fairly connected. I do have some insights here, and I maintain a Mega City 1 series guest starring Judge Dredd is the wrong way to go. You make a spin-off series like that, but you begin with the Judge Dredd series and securing Carl Urban. And I'm convinced that if you pitch him a Judge Dredd series instead of a Mega City 1 series, you'll get Carl Urban. And then suddenly everything else is just going to fall into place. That's my hypothesis.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily sell it to Netflix. You could easily be like, we're going to make it. Do you want to distribute it Netflix? Do you want to buy it off us? They'd be like, yeah, sure. Like, it'd be a big hit for Netflix.
I think it would be really easy sell. Not just Netflix. You could go to HBO Max. They would pick it up. You could go to Apple. They would pick it up.
I don't think that's a given for HBO Max or Apple. Dredd as a character and as a comic book entity, it isn't massively well known. It isn't hugely well known, and they'll look at the track record of it and go, not hugely popular, guys. So it's not a given. Like, we love it, but the track record of it isn't that good, and that's the problem. That's the issue.
Still, I think that that you could sell a Judge Dredd series a hell of a lot easier than you can sell a Mega City 1 series.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I ultimately agree with you there, of course. And bearing in mind, anything which I had read is gone now. They're not doing it.
Yeah.
Because of legal issues.
Yeah.
Gotta get to some super chats real quick before we shuffle on.
Go for it.
Ederific USN Vet says, being able to watch Justice League, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Mortal Kombat will have me switch from Disney Plus to HBO Max. Do it. Absolutely do it, my dude. I need to get on that myself, actually. And I do know Mortal Kombat broke some records, didn't they, for the most viewed R-rated Red Band trailer? Epic. And it deserves it as well. That Mortal Kombat trailer was fucking cool.
It was.
Neat Switch for €10 says, a small comfort for me is that every colleague, if have endorsed that movie to, has loved it. A few even brought the Blu-ray. One even made his own costume for Carnival with another friend. That's the thing. Everyone that watches it loves that. It's a great film. It's absolutely brilliant. Another one from Neat Switch says, I don't think we will get a sequel, but what Dredd showed is the potency of that world and what can be done with it. True. I mean, obviously, we're learning a little bit more now that maybe so there's some weird rights going on. I don't know. Ederific USM Vets. Dredd has a similar feel to that of the first Blade Runner in terms of a believable futuristic world, but one isn't a knockoff of the other. That's a really good comparison, actually. That's a really good comparison. What do you think to that?
That sounds, yeah, I agree. I agree to that. I have nothing to say. It speaks for itself.
Yeah, it's a very good comparison. So yeah, I mean, look, I hope to see Dredd appear in future. It'll be interesting to see whether anything does actually happen. What would you want a series to look like, or a sequel, if you could get one? What's your ultimate sequel series?
Democracy storyline.
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, with Carl Urban.
As a series or a movie? Which?
Series.
Okay. What about a movie, though?
Honestly, I want as much Dredd as possible, and I think that it lends itself extremely well to the serialized format. We already got the introduction to the world in the movie. Now that we are introduced to it, I would love to see it continued in serialized format.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Good answers. Not too bad. Yeah, I don't disagree, to be honest. I still... I think, like, after something like that, I still want to see Judge Death turn up.
You can do that in a series. That's the beauty.
It's kind of that, yeah. It's kind of that, like, polar opposite thing. Like, it's too realistic a world, but I do know that if they kept to that same style as Dredd the movie, that having Judge Death turn up would just be fucking terrifying, absolutely terrifying. It would be so good. Having the Dark Judges. Yeah. So good.
For that, you definitely need serialized storytelling.
Because there's a lot involved in the Dark Judges.
Built anyway. Up. That needs to be like a Thanos-like thing almost.
Yeah, well, there's a lot involved in the Dark Judges. There is a lot involved there. So, yeah, I agree with that. Do you think, though? Here's an interesting take. Do you think that Dredd, in its what should be, because the comic was originally, I don't know what it's like nowadays, sort of apolitical satire, non-partisan satire, do you think it is something which could fall prey to current culture of being quite partisan? That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a very good question.
And also, everyone in the chat.
I fear that it could fall prey to it. I would hope that the powers that be would have the strength and the fortitude to not fall prey to it. But yeah, I do fear that that if you get like a big American co-production partner involved, they're gonna demand their partisan politics into it, which would utterly destroy it. In this sense, I would be very comfortable with as much power as possible to rebellion, provided, of course, that they get rid of the stupid Megacity 1 idea and do a proper Judge Dredd. Like, once they get over that, so that you actually make the thing. I would much, much rather you have someone independent that are able to keep the politics out of it, someone that realizes that you basically, you need to do what the Orville does. You need to have like a basic human thing, and if anything you do get involved in politics, it has to be like the opposite. It has to be, you warn against the fascism and totalitarianism of the world of Judge Dredd by highlighting the very real totalitarianism that you have right now, and warn where that can lead. That's the way you would do it. But could you get away with that by speaking truth to power? I don't know. That's
well, the principal officer comes in with something horrible here, saying 2000 AD has already fallen prey to partisan politics. That is a shame. I'm guessing we're just talking about the comic here. That is a massive shame. I was not aware.
Well, if they have done that, and there's absolutely no freaking reason to, but if they have done that, actually, I've heard both heavy metal and 2000 AD are compromised, and
shame.
That's hopefully that's just because they have some editors with very bad attitudes. That wouldn't be the first time to happen in 2000 AD history, but if that is something that goes higher up to like Kingsley and stuff, then honestly, I would rather see it not made until it can be made without being polluted.
Yeah. So this is important. You can talk about them without being partisan, and that's what we're discussing here. Zog Rororoth, who says Dredd MC1 is about politics, corruption, the total mess of it all. Take it away and you're left with nothing. No, absolutely, definitely discuss it all. You know, we're talking about democracy, the storyline, and things like that. Like, there's a lot to go into with it. You know, the justice system itself is, I mean, it's fascism. You know, the judges are, you know, it's fascist power. They're judge, jury, and executioner, right? They are the law. They are the ultimate force. They are the government, essentially. So, no, I agree. But what we're talking about is whether it becomes partisan. That's what we don't want it to become. So yeah, no, I agree with your point there. But we're just looking at it very much from whether it becomes a sort of a partisan situation. So yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. What's this? Sorry. I dipped back in after being away for years. That's mortgages for you. It's gone woke. At least I have my collection from the 80s and 90s. That's a shame.
That is a complete shame. That's yeah. And again, I know my Dredd, but it's like the classic OG stories. Like I'm up to where they are in the case files. That's how far I'm, and they haven't gotten woke by that point.
That's a shame. Eddie Riffic USN says, R.I.P. heavy metal. I was first introduced to Heavy Metal magazine in a movie when I was a kid in the early 80s. Yeah. Heavy metal's epic. 8-bit fucking, what am I saying here? 8-bit SNK boy? Sunk boy? I don't know. Sorry. I'm trying to insult your username here. I'm just confusing how I say it. Mr. H reviews, most comic book writers and artists are dyed-in-the-wool Labour Party supporters and Corbynites. I know I used to talk to a lot of them. They're all left-leaning, almost to a fault. It doesn't matter if they are left-leaning. Obviously, what you're saying there is them being left-leaning to a fault. Is when I assume the fault part is when their partisan behaviour becomes clear in their work, which is then that's a problem, isn't it? Because then, well, I don't know, it's not for everyone then, is it? You always exclude people at that point, and that's a bit of a shame. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I can't remember the last time I spoke to Jason. I could pull up my emails and figure it out. It was a long time ago now, though. The last time I spoke to Jason Kingsley, I spoke to him about the distribution of Schools Out Forever, trying to figure that out. But yeah, I might reach out to him, see what's going on. I'll read this new article and then see what's happening. Because their offices are not. I don't live too far from Oxford. I can travel there quite easily, to be honest, and see what's happening. But I think that about wraps it up, ladies and gents. I say this and then everyone buggers off. But guys, please do. If you've stayed this long, you've stayed here for nearly 2.5 hours. So please do hit that thumbs up button. It really does help the channel out, and a video that will remain live on the channel. So please do hit that like button. If you want, please do follow me over on Twitter at Mr. H Reviews. You can find out why I'm no longer doing the reviews for Godzilla vs. Kong, all the trailers and stuff like that. I posted that up there. And please do follow me over on Instagram. In fact, you can have an insight that no one else has on an upcoming film project that I'm doing only on my Instagram. Same username here at Mr. H Reviews. Where can people find you? Andre?
You can find me over at the YouTube channel Midnight Edge, where we do complementary content to what you're already used from Mr. H. Some editorials, some retrospectives, and all of that jazz. So do check that out.
Yes, please do, guys. Please do. And also, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Fucking my mind's gone completely blank. It's quite late. I was going to say about my live streams. There we go. I live stream if you've enjoyed this, every single Monday, Andre is here. It's 99% of the time. He is the guest here on Mondays, live stream the round table. So please do join every single Monday for me and Andre shooting the breeze. But I do live stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's 9 p.m. GMT. Just do the conversion for where you are in your world. But thank you so much for joining. Again, cannot thank you enough. I really do appreciate you all joining me to have this DREDD mega review. Thank you all so much. I hope you have a great evening. Look out for some future videos. Subscribe to Midnight's Edge. Tell them I sent you. Thanks so much. Take care.